So a lot of people really liked my Shadow of Chernobyl with only the Makarov pistol video. And the obvious move after that would be to go and play the second Stalker game that way. The original. Because yes, before Stalker 2, Heart of Chernobyl, there has in fact been other sequels in the Stalker series. And today we'll be talking about STALKER Clear Sky, a game notorious for a lot of reasons, but most interesting to us here because this is the first game in the series to add weapon modifications. That's right, today we're about to take the Makarov pistol to its fullest, absolutely maximum potential. Is it going to be actually any good? Well, let's find out, as I finally asked the question, can you beat STALKER Clear Sky with only the PM pistol? And let you out of this intro. We open on a cutscene with a stalker leading a group of scientists through the swamps. Suddenly, a massive emission catches them off guard, and they all just die. Straight up. Except for the main character, who survived dying. It is worth noting that while the initial cutscene of this game is skippable, the game then presents you with this long-form cinematic, where the camera slowly pans into the room, and then Lebedev, the guy who saved us, talks at you, like, at length. Like, after the mess with how every cutscene s.t.a.l.k.e.r looked differently in the original game, I really appreciate how in this game, all of the midway through cutscenes are basically done in-engine. But it's very frustrating having to sit here and listen to them every single time you replay the game. And the intro to this game is long enough, but you'll see. Point is, our corpse has been discovered by a faction of stalkers living in these swamps. They call themselves Clear Sky and they dedicate their lives to uncovering the mysteries of the zone and studying them like scientists, except without a license. A somewhat new idea for this game are the emissions. One did show up by the end of the original Shadow of Chernobyl, when you run by the power plant and it threatens to blow up everything and everyone. Well, turns out, this type of emission, this type of a blowout, actually happens in the zone rather frequently and basically at random. The blowouts are basically the zone expunging a massive amount of energy onto everything unprotected and uncovered. If you are caught outside of a hideout during an emission, you die, making it all the more confusing to the Clear Sky people that our guy actually survived, because the mission that we survived has been one of the biggest the zone has ever known. It was so big and so powerful in fact that it has mixed up all of the passages through the areas, opened up new anomalies and just changed the face of the zone forever. While Lebedev explains all that, I entertain myself by putting a mouse pointer over his bald head, so it looks like he has a party hat on. Also, leaving my quarters, he gives me a military salute without a hat on, which you're not actually supposed to do. For a quick bit we get to explore the Clear Sky base and meet the barman, who just once again lets us explain him things because he obviously hasn't seen the cutscenes. But soon enough, Lebedev actually calls upon our help, gives us a gun and lets us out into the zone. And boy, it feels great to be back. Except someone has pranked us and put some glue on our right hand, so now it's just stuck to this PM pistol. Wonderful. Our first mission is to reach this little tower and help out a Clear Sky scout to fight off some mutants. No, just kidding, it's not. As soon as we reach the tower, another blowout begins, and we are blown the heck out. The fellow we're here to rescue immediately lays down for a nap, and so do we, except we actually wake up back at the Clear Sky base to some very confused Lebedev. Yep, the first time they let you out into the zone is also a part of the tutorial. I'm telling you, the intro to this game is amazing. Clear Sky as a game overall does a few switcheroos on the player, especially if they have played Shadow of Chernobyl, which is fine by me. I don't really mind things like artifacts rebalancing or certain weapons not working the way I'm used to. I mean, I'm not gonna use any of them anyway, I'm stuck to the pistol. There's two main things that Lebedev has now figured out about our main character. For one, despite all odds, he can survive an emission. And for two, he can only survive so many emissions before he kicks the bucket anyway. While the rest of the body is functioning approximately okay, the nervous system of the main character is completely busted, and every emission draws you closer to death. And here's the thing. Both of the things that the Lebedev tells you here are a lie. For one, the guy we're playing as cannot survive an emission in the actual game. Every time one starts, you have to find cover. That's kind of the entire game mechanic. And for 2, you can play this game for as long as you want. There isn't an actual time limit for you to figure out the plot. So right away we're starting with some powerful bamboozling. Over some needlessly long dialogues, we find out some things about how the Clear Sky sees the world. Their theory essentially is that the reason the zone has been blowing up so much lately is because somebody has broken into the center of it. And the zone is reacting the way an actual organism would. It's having a fever and dispersing antibodies to push the foreign bodies out. And given the zone's behavior lately, Clear Sky speculates that somebody is about to get to the center of the zone again. Figuring out who that is and how to stop them will be our mission through the entire game. And our only lead right now is that some weirdo on the cordon has recently ordered incredibly specific radio parts. So as soon as possible, we have to go and investigate. Which is actually gonna be a problem because all the ins and outs from the swamps are currently occupied not by the Clear Sky faction, but by the fiendish renegades keeping the faction down. If we want to ever get out and see the wider zone, we need to take the swamps back. This is basically one of the most impressive new mechanics in the entire game, the faction wars. They're basically like the GTA San Andreas turf wars, but for the beginning of the game, we're auto-recruited into the Clear Sky and we'll be fighting the new Renegade faction. Which sounds really exciting at first, because ooh, renegades. The lore of the faction is that they are basically the worst of the worst. They are so bad and awful that even the bandits didn't want them. And until you meet them, you really are like, wow, I wonder what their whole deal is, and they are just bandits. They are literally just bandits, they don't even have their own visuals. They're basically only here because the developers wanted to use someone to kill in the beginning of the game without already ruining your reputation with the mafia on the garbage. Which is just sad.
Anyway, I started blasting. Bang! Bang!
Now, this is the only mandatory faction war in the entire game. But even without the faction wars, STALKER Clear Sky is probably the most combat heavy out of all of the games, making me genuinely concerned about how much of a slog it's gonna be to play it using only the Makarov pistol. But to my surprise, right out of the gate, the PM showcases a surprisingly long range. Like, I know that the weapon stats in Clear Sky are incredibly scuffed. Notoriously, the sawed-off shotgun suddenly remembers that it used to be a rifle at some point and can blow down targets way beyond what you feel should be the range. But on the upside, the enemy death animations are really funny, and it is very satisfying to do renegade headshots. After some minor killing, I come back to the base and ask the trader if there's any rewards for me. And for some reason there are. For just the little work I did, I already get a flash drive with some leather jacket schematics or whatever, which I can immediately bring to the local mechanic and trade for a lot of money. Unlike Shadow of Chornobyl, Clear Sky actually allows you to fix your weapons, which is really cool. Basically every base in the game has some sort of a mechanic or a technician that will help you fix your weapons. However, they also can upgrade your weapons. And the cash I already have on me is enough to almost fully upgrade the PM pistol. And also to cut an artifact pocket into my tank top. You can find a jellyfish artifact right away in the beginning of the game, like in the intro. And since in this version of the game, jellyfish is an artifact that negates radiation, this is a really helpful find. I also discovered one incredibly cool thing about the PM pistol in this game. Upgrading and fixing it costs basically nothing. The thing is dirt cheap to maintain, which is really helpful to me, a person who consistently runs out of durability on everything by the end of this game. Clear Sky is the one game I kind of played the least in my own time, and I think like a lot of fans share that sentiment, but as a result I'm just not as competent with it. Showcased here in me accidentally upgrading the PM pistol to the 19mm round and victoriously running out of bullets in the very beginning of the game. Not many people are carrying machine gun rounds yet. Sorry a lot for earlier and try to avoid the one upgrade that swaps the caliber on the gun. But this will come in real handy later. I already like a lot how the stronger bullets hit. Shooting my way through the renegades turns out to be actually pretty fun. The gun is still leveled for the area, so the enemies go down rather easily. And also Clear Sky has this thing where a headshot actually kills a person. That should not be something worth noting, but given the previous game, I just thought that I would say that. Really the more frustrating part right now is the faction war mechanic itself. It's really cool that you can just basically reshape the zone to the way you want it. But there's a lot of frustration that comes from the way it's actually structured. It's very annoying how the faction war is basically 80% waiting. First you wait for the mission for a particular settlement to pop up. Then you go clear out the enemies, and then you have to wait for your squad to arrive. After they show up, you have to wait for the PDA to actually register that you captured the point, and once you do, you have to wait for a counterattack to show up, so you can kill and shoot them. And God forbid in the process any of your original squad died, because now you'll have to wait for a new one to arrive. And the whole time there's a chance that while you were fighting people over here, somewhere else a point was lost by the NPC allies. So you have to go and do that all over again. And that's the best case scenario for when the game actually works as intended. Just like with the Shadow of Chernobyl, I'm actually running a fan-made stability patch, the Sky Preservation program. It takes care of a lot of crashes, which is actually really nice because the first time I ever launched Clear Sky on this computer, it genuinely attempted to fry the GPU. But here's what the moddb page of the stability patch says about the faction war mechanic. Fixed too many issues to list here. Yeah, you get it.
Thanks for helping out. Drop by our base sometime, we'll find a way to pay you back, that's a promise.
Winning the Renegade War, I get a Clear Sky armor set, which is a really good camouflage with how it's light blue. No wonder all of the Clear Sky died. But with that, the swamp story is basically finished, and we can leave for Cordon into the loving arms of the army. Specifically their well-armed block post equipped with a machine gun. This is a new thing where Clear Sky adds machine gun nests, and avoiding fire from them can be very hard. The trick for this particular one is to follow the obstacles leading away from the place and listen for the pauses in the gunfire. But even that doesn't work half the time, and yeah, the devs absolutely overdid it on the amount of damage this stupid thing does. On the upside, later in the game you can find one of these machine guns and use them for yourself. And when I say you can, I literally mean you can, I cannot. They stapled this Makarov to my hand quite well. Another trick to this path is to actually cross back and attempt the other passage to Cordon, the upper one. The stalkers won't be too happy about a merc showing up at their camp, but you can still just run through their checkpoint and reach Sidorovich that way. He resets your reputation with the stalkers anyway, as soon as he realizes that you're a paying client. Sidorovich being Sidorovich, he agrees to give up the information on the rare radio technic stalker, only in exchange for you helping him with a situation that arose on the Cordon. By now he should have been delivered a crate of expensive stuff, but a conflict between the stalkers and the military has successfully made that crate disappear somewhere. The stalkers actually have one of the army commanders trapped in their base, but since he won't give up the location of the goods, they can't really do anything with him. You can actually find the soldier who was driving the guy through the cordon when the stalkers attacked him and stole his superior. He's sitting here under a bridge, pondering his options. You can even suggest that you two could go and rescue his commander from the stalker base, and he agrees as long as you give him a gun. But unfortunately, as soon as you do, he starts shooting at you, which makes this not actually an option you can pursue. This is the infuriating part of this whole entire quest. Between this soldier and the moment when the trapped commander offers to pay you to take out the snipers on the bridge, you can almost smell that this was meant to be a wider mission with more options and variety in how to beat it. Maybe at some point they planned to make you able to side with the military in this conflict. But in both cases, you straight up don't have any other dialogue options but telling him no. The stalkers convinced me that since the commander is hoping for his subordinates to rescue him, we're gonna go and kill the two subordinates that are gonna come and rescue him. And turns out that while I was jibber-jabbering to you about non-linearity and whatnot, the first of those subordinates got murdered by somebody else entirely off screen. Usually this is a gunfight, I don't know what happened to him. The second victim is hiding out at the old Bandit base, where you originally rescued Nimble from in the first game. And this turned out to be actually a really tough fight, because everyone has Kalashnikovs and I'm rocking my sniper pistol. The only way I could beat this was to take advantage of my state-issued allies attacking from the opposite side of the base. If more than one soldier focuses fire on me, I basically die immediately, so doing this weird pincer maneuver really helped. Once both lieutenants are dead, the army commander gives up the location of the crate, and all is well in the world. Except for those couple stalkers that the commander sold into slavery to the bandits.
Thanks for returning the case, Merc.
Sidorovich promises to provide a discount for our future deals, but knowing him that just means that it will only cost me 1 kidney to buy a bandage. He also coughs up the details of the stalker who bought the rare radio parts off of him. For one, he simply didn't get all the electronics he wanted and recently left to the garbage area, because turns out the radioactive garbage dump straight up has a cottage industry of people digging into the trash and finding useful things. This is a real thing, by the way. People would go to radioactive dumps in Chornobyl and just resell the electronics from them. But this is also where the game starts to low-key fall apart, as Sidorich reveals that the stalker who bought the electronics was called Fang. And if you paid attention while playing Shadow of Chernobyl, you know full well that Fang is the name of one of the closest friends of s.t.a.l.k.e.r. And also you know that Fang is dead as hell. Sure, it could be a different stalker named Fang, but spoiler alert, it isn't. This is basically STALKER Clear Sky turning around to you and telling you, surprise, this is a prequel. Which is an incredibly silly thing to do, because you now know full well that the stalker you're trying to stop from going to the center of the zone is s.t.a.l.k.e.r. And you know full well that he made it there because otherwise the first game wouldn't have happened. So like, what are we doing here? What is the plot? The plot is, spoiler alert, just an entire chase sequence. That's honestly one of the biggest problems with this game, is that on your first playthrough, you might as well actually believe it that you have to hurry it up and accidentally rush through the actual main quest, having not quite experienced any of this version of the zone. Which is quite sad, because among with the rather unique anomalies and rather unique artifacts, there is a set of potentially very fascinating side quests. The most basic types are of course the little tasks you can get from random stalker commanders. For example, this rogue soldier under the bridge actually offers one of the more interesting quests in the entire game. His comrade has died in an anomaly, which, you know, normal stuff. However, his situation is way more sad, as the guy got stuck in a so-called space anomaly. And no matter how hard he tried to leave it, it kept teleporting him back in. And so he just remained there until he ran out of living juice. This is a horrible way to go already, and his friend just wants something to remember him by. Specifically, he hopes to get his PDA. And this is your introduction to one of the most interesting new additions to the anomaly roster, the space anomaly. If you run up to the end of the tunnel where the guy's corpse is, you can't actually enter the tunnel. Whenever you take a step in, it teleports you outside. So you will have to find a different entrance in, and it's found that that entrance is the only other space anomaly on the entirety of Cordon. You can very easily spot it up top over the little block post that the stalkers have set up. It's a translucent shining ball that the local stalkers have been just throwing trash into. They know that whatever they throw in disappears, but they don't actually know where it goes. So all you have to do is gather your death wish, climb the decrepit train bridge, and leap into the hole in the space, only to be transported into the very same tunnel as that soldier's friend. Obviously, it is very funny when you realize that you are now also inside of the space anomaly from where this guy couldn't find an exit, but unfortunately it's not like a hot trial or anything. You actually can just basically walk out, because the anomaly up front the tunnel still just teleports you out. Those kind of raise the question of how the original guy managed to not find the exit, but we can pretty much assume that an emission has changed the way this anomaly works. Or that he was very stupid, that is also an option. Not all missions are as interesting like this, a lot of them are just very basic fetch quests, but a special shout out should go to this one quest in the beginning of the game, where a stalker asks you to retrieve a special medkit from the further southern block post that the military is occupying. Yes, this is the same base that you come back to raid in Stalker Shadow of Chernobyl, the one that's clearly way too tough to a beginner player right now. But obviously we're going to try and steal the thing, because currently it is nighttime, so maybe a stealth route is possible. This time, however, I don't actually know the stealth route at all, so we'll be choosing Chaos as, you know, many times in this playthrough. To start with, I barge in through the main entry, take a sharp left to get into the tower, only to find out that there isn't actually a path to the top of it from the inside. I would have to go into this stretch between buildings, and apparently that's where an entire battalion of Spetsnaz is just sitting. They actually refuse to leave this spot and come back to sitting every time I get out of their view. Trying to squeeze past them very predictably results in basically an execution by a firing squad, but if I just go to a different window out of the same building, I can basically just snipe them without them reacting at all. I don't know what kind of scripting is going on here, but I do know that there's a pile of corpses right there, and that's not even all of the people in this military base. Somebody is still shooting at me. With the medkit in hand, I return for my admittedly measly reward and sit out the rest of the night at the Stalker base, since I want this video to actually look okay on YouTube. To pass the time, I help the local chef by rotating the speed so it cooks more evenly. With a full extra day wasted, I decided to after all go chase that Fang and move to the garbage where he was last seen. Immediately upon entry, a flock of bandits points a gun at my head and demands that I stay still while they come up and rob me. This is perfectly normal behavior, by the way, and the only way to cross the bandit checkpoints in the garbage without upsetting your reputation with the group. At the very least, the game is versatile enough to let you just open fire and start a bandit war right there and right then. However, apparently you can also just run away, which will make everyone start shooting at you, but it is rather easy to get away from them. Compared to completely slaughtering several members of the Mafia, this only lowers your reputation with the bandits a little bit. And that little margin is where I'm gonna leave the rest of the game pretty much. Yes, after the rough greeting, you can actually absolutely go and annihilate the entire bandit threat off of the face of the garbage. The leader of the loner stalkers even offers you to join their group, which will immediately kick off a faction war against the bandits. But you might not want to do that because the bandits are actually a rather helpful faction in this game. For one, they do have their own base which you can visit, and for two, the bandit technician is the only character in the entire game that can upgrade a Seva suit. And he is looking for more flash drives with upgrade information, for which they will pay nicely. And also look who's here. It's Borov! You know, the guy from the original game that became a bandit leader apparently between the games. Yeah, here he is! And in this version he still hasn't put up the weight from, you know, being the bandit boss. Here he's just a barman, which is really helpful to me because I've been lugging these 17 bottles of vodka on me the entire game. And I really need to get rid of them, but I don't want to drink them. You don't get much money for selling food in this game, but at least it won't go to waste. Anyway, I now have 800 bullets. Let's go check on those diggers. And the diggers are all dead. Apparently something keeps coming in the night and taking out all of the stalkers in this base. But that's a side quest we don't really have time for right now. Because turns out the diggers did actually dig up the rare components that Fang asked for. In fact, their messenger is currently running for him. And luckily for me, he got into a pack of blind dogs and is a little bit pinned down right now. Once we shoot down the mongrels, the messenger gives up the info that Fang left for the Freedom base, which at this point in the history of the zone is located in the Dark Valley. This is interesting because at this point, Freedom isn't actually allied with bandits like it is in the Shadow of Chernobyl. I guess the idea is that at some point, the shifting of the bases was in fact part of the truce agreement. The duty have their base moved too. They now live in the Agroprom Institute, which in Shadow of Chernobyl was a military base. As to who is living in the bar right now, I have no idea. Trying to go through the bar passage right now only results in the message you can't find your way further. Which once again proves that s.t.a.l.k.e.r, the main character, is totally bitch-made. The man can survive an emission, but can't even see artifacts without that detector. Makarov from the last game never had that issue. As you enter Dark Valley, you are stopped by a Freedom checkpoint. They don't immediately rob you, but they do inform you that the entire Dark Valley is currently under lockdown due to a severe case of everyone dying all the time. Freedom is the only faction occupying this territory, so even they have no idea who is constantly taking out their patrols. The whole valley is on high alert, but they do immediately send me directly to their base, because even they can tell that I probably won't do any damage with my PM and wearing this clown suit. They at least won't let me talk to their leader. But I can't ask their commandant if Fang recently passed through here. He only says that Fang did indeed talk to the leader of the Freedom, and also he calls him some hobo, which is very funny to me. But obviously the three guys really want to get some labor out of me before they give up the information. So the commandant tells me to go clear out a Psy dog that's been bothering the base every night. Absolutely hilariously, the beast appears to be stuck face first into a truck. By the time it actually notices me and starts spawning hallucinatory dogs, I have already transported a full clip of bullets into its brain. With my allegiances now proven, the Freedoms trust me to investigate one of their other outposts, low-key hoping that I will also die here. Unfortunately for them, by the time I show up, the killing's already finished. Maybe it's because on the way, I take my time to snatch an artifact from an anomaly over these beans. It's a very conveniently localized fruit punch, and it usually has an artifact for you the first time you pass. And it's a good one, the Urchin. This is +4 for my health regeneration, as opposed to -30 to radiation that it was in the previous game. Honestly, watching how fast the health bar ticks up whenever I have this equipped, This might carry us through the rest of the game. While in the area, I decided to also check for Mama's beads and visit the radioactive grain elevator from the first game, which turns out is straight up no longer there. Or I guess it never was here, given that this is a prequel. I guess the bandits just installed it later between the games or something. Listen, Clear Sky, I like the revised map, I really do. I enjoy how much more detail is here and there, but sometimes it just really conflicts with this being a prequel. Like this Stalker base, right? This is what it looks like in the original Shadow of Chernobyl. Am I to believe that somebody between the games decide, yeah, no, we should remove those massive trucks? And also, how would they even do that? Like, sure, a whirligig anomaly would absolutely mess up an Optimus Prime corpse, but this is kinda ridiculous. Regardless, I find the PDA and the corpse in the outpost, and the commandant straight up disappears. Turns out it was actually him behind the disappearances, and now that I found some info that proves that, he just bails out of the base. This at least wins me a talk with the leader of the Freedom, but he too refuses to give up any info about Fang unless I help the clan with their mess of a situation. The traitorous commandant was leaking the Freedom data to a mercenary group, so now we have to go fight off his friends, even though they're also my friends because I'm also technically a mercenary. Their base is far across the map, so obviously by the time I arrive to the function, all the enemies are already dead, and that includes the commandant. Chekhov specifically says that the mercs have hanged the guy on the tree, but his corpse is right here on the ground, so I guess he's making shit up. Or the rope gave out before I came in? The thing that confuses me the most here is that I know for a fact that the game has corpse physics, and that in the previous game you could see actual hanged corpses, so I don't know why they didn't just put one of those Halloween decorations onto this tree and make it so that the PDA just lays on the ground under it. But at least the PDA has all the info about the operations of the mercenaries in the area, meaning that one last time, the commandant got to rat on somebody from beyond the grave. Despite me not having helped at all, the Freedom leader gives up the info about where Fang left. But before I leave, he offers to do another side quest for them. Dude, I am chasing one of the legendary stalkers into the center of the zone, and if I don't catch him before he gets there, the whole entire zone blows up. Then again, I have over 1,000 bullets, so... Essentially the mission comes down to capturing 3 more outposts, and one of them, obviously they capture without any of my help. The final shootout is at the old factory, but the entrance into the X-18 lab is blocked off. And also in theory, I don't have the keys for it anyway. Originally the Freedom troops asked me to just take out the snipers on the roof, but the best way of doing that I could figure out was to barge into the main entrance anyway, take the stairway to the second story and take them out from behind. This does get the job done, but kinda defeats the purpose. With that, the whole Freedom faction becomes friendly with me, and I leave once again for the garbage, to find Fang by the night market, where his PDA signal finally stops. Eager for a confrontation, I kick down the basement door, only to be met with a grenade explosion.
Hey, you. Finally awake.
Thankfully this is a scripted bit and we don't actually die. The plot is that 2 bandits have set up an ambush in this basement and have now stolen all of my things and run off with it.
I don't know if they wanted money or they wanted something more sexual. Wow. But it's a lucky thing.
Fang isn't here either, but his PDA is. I guess he got away from them but dropped it. The bandits lament that they didn't get him, but according to his grave in Shadow of Chernobyl, Fang was always wearing a modified exoskeleton and a set of mama's beads, so I highly doubt that the 2 would actually survive the confrontation. Though maybe he didn't actually have that on. After all, the bandits do say that he ran away, and you can't run in an exoskeleton. For a moment I actually panic. To continue the challenge, I only can use a PM pistol to deal damage to the enemies. But luckily there's a fresh, unmodded one laying in the pile of stuff in the corner. In that pile there's also a flash drive with upgrades that the bandit mechanic could buy for 12,000 rubles. I guess the 2 criminals haven't been to their base lately, or simply don't know what a flash drive is. My point is they really missed out, but trust me, once I get to them, I will not miss. You actually get a separate side mission to go and retrieve all your stuff, so it's marked on your map. As to how s.t.a.l.k.e.r knows exactly where the bandits took his things, I assume that he can smell it. Killing the 2 does actually tip my reputation lower into the enemy's territory with the bandits. But it's gonna take a few more killings to get the gang to start shooting me on sight. Thanks PDA also confirms that the group actually did make it to the center of the zone shortly before the biggest blowout in years, and now are planning an even deeper excursion. In the regular stash, at the Agroprom. And since the previous game, we know where that stash is really well. So we better hoof it to the Institute and maybe pay duty a visit while at it. As I enter Agroprom, a duty patrol stopped me to warn about how violent the mutants have become in the area, and offered to escort me to their base since they're going that way anyway. Then 2 steps in, they are violently attacked and killed by a bloodsucker. Look at this guy getting absolutely launched after the mutant gives him a good suck. I don't stick around to see what happens and bolt it to the duty base. The leader explains that the catacombs are filled with monsters, which is why the faction has welded up all the exits. This did not actually help against the monsters who simply dug their way out, but it handily prevents me from going down there and getting my sweet 16 MB flash drive out of the s.t.a.l.k.e.r hideout. And true enough, approaching a manhole by their base returns the message "Permission is needed to enter the hall." Fair enough, consent is important. The duty agreed to let me into their hall if on my way through I will pull a lever to flood the tunnels, which they think would help block off the mutant routes. Or, hear me out here, that would push the mutants out of their halls and force them to invade your idiot base even harder. The idiot base that has a hole into the catacombs in the middle of it. Ever think about that? Still I go along with the plan because it's the duty members, there's no convincing them. This section is always a massive pain for me since the s.t.a.l.k.e.s populating the lowest tunnel deal massive damage and move very quick. Being basically just guys playing wolves, the s.t.a.l.k.e.s are vulnerable to headshots, but actually hitting their head is rather hard when they leap and cartwheel around the way they do. To my luck, today they've decided to trot across the tunnel, entertaining themselves mostly by getting set on fire by the flame spouts coming out from the pipes. As long as I can reach the medkit button, I can join them and run to the ladder out of their grasp. Funnily enough, I always think that there would be burers here, but by this point into development, that mutant was straight up not in any of the games. I'm just misremembering from one of my favorite mods. One story above, I am now locked in the pump station for a boss battle with a controller. The wibble wobble of the Psy vision will absolutely prevent me from showing any of this on YouTube, but just trust me, there is a controller somewhere in this mess you are seeing on the screen right now. It is also being shot. After I pull the plug, I get 50 seconds to reach a ladder out of the tunnel and into the well-known and recognized part of the s.t.a.l.k.e.r hideout. It is being guarded by the bandits again. Our relationship with the Mafia will never recover. The hideout has a PDA with a full convo between Ghost and s.t.a.l.k.e.r recorded. s.t.a.l.k.e.r went to get the Psi protective helmet from Makarov, the scientist, so they can try a different way to the center of the zone from the last one they took. And we have to follow. With his face confirmed, Lebedev dramatizes over the radio that the expedition would result in an emission strong enough to wipe out all life in the zone. His source? Just trust me, bro. On the exit from the catacombs there are 2 pyrogeists, killing whom grants me the permission to enter the hall and get out 2 steps away from the duty base. So overall, this is a rather fun and spooky expedition down into the mysterious underground with a unique mutant encounter at the end. Sure sucks that it's the only one in this whole game! Clear Sky as a game has no shortage of interesting locations, sure, but most of them you simply shoot some guys in. I get that after Marked 1 went through the stuff in the shadow of Chornobyl, there's not many of the zone mysteries left to discover for the player, but the lack of atmospheric catacombs to explore is seriously hurting the enjoyment of this game. Don't worry though, I know exactly where all of those laboratories went, and we'll get to that game eventually. The reward money is well enough to purchase me some new armor. At first I thought I could get the Seva suit, but moving it into the trading interface changed the price by extra 10,000, so I had to settle for the Beryl suit. Given the journey ahead, it might be a good idea to invest into bullet resistance anyway. Still, buying it was a bit of a flub on my part, because a group of stalkers spawns in on your way to the Yantar bunker, and if you help them, you get a fresh and even upgraded Sunrise suit, tailored for anomaly diving. But as we're about to find out, it's not even the full extent of my uselessness. Sakharov admits that s.t.a.l.k.e.r has indeed recently visited, and has since left to the X16 emitter to supposedly test out a new prototype helmet. Any signal from him disappeared after the emitter blew out again, so I guess he did keep his promise. He tested the prototype and it doesn't work. Before we can investigate the abandoned factory over the lab, the scientists need some extra data on the nature of the Psy field, and a Stalker expedition was supposed to come back with some findings. They all died though, so we get to go pick up the info from their corpses. A Psi-Dog is guarding it with a small pack of blind pups, but the PM is actually kinda nice for popping the illusory dogs and locating the real one. Also there's an anomalous area nearby, but it's fresh out of the artifacts. But I do find another urchin in the swamp on my way back. Fun as it would be to have 2 + 4 life artifacts regenerating me at all times, I don't actually have an anti-radiation artifact that strong, so I begrudgingly sell the sea creature to the scientist. The data from the PDA turns out to be some blueprints on the cooling system of the zombie fire Psi emitter. Turns out the reason it's blowing in waves is because part of the installation is straight up overheating. So in a cruel plot twist, instead of shutting the emitter down like we did in the first game, we're here to actually fix the doohickey, because with the liquid cooling reinstalled, the Monolith Gamer PC will microwave brains a little more evenly. This is a very railroady mission, where you have to assist the NPC stalkers deployed into the abandoned factory. First, you and the group just have to clear out the path deeper into the territory. But then, the mission turns into a veritable shooting gallery as you take the position over the squad fixing the coolant and have to snipe away zombies advancing at them. And this is where I actually got a little scared over the success of the run, because obviously my hand cannon doesn't actually blast that far. The way this mission functions is you can't actually lose it. The stalkers are to a degree invincible, and you can't shoot as badly as you want. Instead, your main limiter is the timer that doesn't go down unless you make sure the stalkers aren't getting distracted by the zombies. To make it a bit less of a mess, the game makes sure that there's an exoskeleton-clad sniper right there with you. But even with him, it's a rather long and boring couple of minutes. So at worst, I'm stuck in here forever, hoping that the sniper just happens to do a mission for me. Right? Well, not at all. Turns out, the fully upgraded Makarov is actually very predictable in the bullet trajectory department. And I can still score headshots all the way from here as long as I adjust for the bullet curve. This makes no sense, and yet it's working.
Great, the cooling station is working again. The Psy field is stable. It's time for us to get out of here.
With the Cerebrium fondling apparatus now broadcasting like it's supposed to, the signal from s.t.a.l.k.e.r comes up on Sakharov's equipment, and the guy appears to be alive and well, gunning it for the Red Forest. And this perhaps is the funniest place for me to temporarily give up on the main quest and go do something else instead. He will be running to that Red Forest for quite a while. Sakharov is now selling a Bulat armored suit, which will be our alternative to an exoskeleton for the day. I can't buy it though, cause money, so we'll hold s.t.a.l.k.e.r on his run in limbo for a while longer. My next move is to get as much money as I can by finding and selling artifacts, so enjoy this quick tour of the zone's favorite death traps. In the electric anomalies of Yantar factory, I find the battery artifact that helps you run longer and better. This would be my permanent friend for the rest of the video, but a nearby short circuit spawns in the shell, which is a direct upgrade for it. The better stamina is very good for quality of life, but not as much as the Veles detector I remembered to buy from the scientist. While the other ones only really point towards the artifact, this one is basically a small minimap with the artifact location right on it, so this makes anomaly diving so much better. And now we're gonna try and squeeze out some money out of this thing. Thankfully, right as I return to Agroprom, an emission begins. And much as I dislike standing indoors for a few minutes for no reason, riveting emergent gameplay, I know. The mission at least forces the anomalies to spawn in new artifacts, so I am just in time. The shock therapy combo anomaly at the camp immediately returns a sparkler and a Psi protective artifact. But a much bigger find is this corpse of a suited giant surrounded by blind dogs. Not only did I not know that these were supposed to spawn at this point in the game, I am very surprised that some blind dogs can take it out. Coming back to the swamps, I find the renegade activity higher than ever, despite me specifically annihilating their entire population. At least I find a stone blood in a fruit punch. Spamming medkits gets me through a different toxic puddle that had a stone flower stuck in it as well. A Psi electric heal by the church scores a flash, which can help against electricity, but will be used mainly as a paperweight. Still, it helps me get into a nearby electric anomaly and get another flash. A hole in the ground that screams fire at you coughs up a crystal. Make that 2 crystals, another one was in a burnt down village that continues burning thanks to flame anomalies. Cordon scores no artifacts, but I do get a fetch quest to bring a stalker something called Magic Vodka. The final bit of the money I decide to accomplish by finishing the Bandit technician quest, delivering him all the upgrade flash drives. Outside of the unique one that you find in the Fang's basement, these are mostly found in stashes around the same location the technician is in. You have to buy the stash coordinates from other stalkers or traders, and you can also ask them what's in them before you actually buy. This little maneuvers cost me a bunch of money, but more importantly, it also renders the Bandit faction completely useless, as I don't actually plan on getting the Seva suit. And given that I now walk out of Sakharov's bunker wearing a fresh bullet armor, it is a very bad idea to be completely useless to me right now. The suit is actually pretty nice for upgrades as well, though it only can carry 2 artifacts. And my options are limited by the one upgrade route that has night vision in it. Not that the night vision in this game ever plays nice with the YouTube compression, but I gotta at least give it my best shot. And speaking of that, I'm about to go and best shoot the whole entire Bandit faction. So before we start a faction war with the whole entire mafia, we gotta take care of a longer side quest concerning a slave camp that the bandits have going. It's bad enough they're using captive stalkers to farm artifacts from the burner anomalies, they also won't let me go and get any. The stalkers at the night market aren't happy about it either. But we have to help them out before they actually let me join their crusade. One asks me to fetch a PDA from a camp of the dead diggers, but that actually is just a PDA case with a stash of money in it. The guy's still in need of some more though, and the only thing he can offer is a medkit worth 2000 rubles. For reference, that's 3 times the market price, but I'm too clever to back out of a deal of a lifetime and shake on it. My massive Twitch donation is supposed to pay for a stash of guns from a shady trader who they trust me to meet nearby. But as I leave the base, the stalkers contact me as if I already met up with him and was caught in an ambush. They then act as if I already fought off the ambush and tell me to grab the PDA off of the guy's corpse, which is a tall ask since I actually have no clue where or who he even is.
What? Stringov lured you into an ambush? The son of a bitch will fry for this. This scumbag kicked the bucket, huh? You may want to check him out for something of value.
Thankfully, the mission highlights it on the map. What I think has happened here is that the meeting was supposed to take place at one of the little outposts scattered across the garbage. But by the time the ambush was supposed to spawn in, that outpost was actually occupied by a duty squad. So the bandit ambush has spawned in and got immediately killed by a much better armed duty people. This is not even the only consequence of me doing this whole mission line this deep into the actual game. The PDA reveals that the traitor was in fact a traitor, but the weaponry he promised does exist. And using it, the local stalkers are ready to attack the slavery camp at the vehicle dump and rescue the stalkers in it. But even with my PM, I appear to be the most combat ready out of all of them.
Man, I was sure as hell I'd die here like a dog.
My heroics mean I can check the fireburst anomalies right away and earn the 2 Mama's beats, though in this game these are only good against bleeding and don't just magically stop bullets midair like in the shadow of Chornobyl. Still, killing this many gopniks tips my relationship with the bandits into enemies anyway, so I think it's prime time we go join the Loners campaign and take out the garbage. Am I only eradicating the bandits because of the annoying stops at the location passes? Yeah, I kinda hold a grudge. Back on Cordon, I talked to Valerian to officially join the Loner Stalker faction. Which makes no goddamn sense because if they have a faction, then they aren't loners. But turns out there are many benefits to being a faction. For example, due to my progress through the game, Freedom and Duty have taken over every entry and exit from the garbage. And while I was messing around, the stalkers also took over the cordon passages, meaning that every single mission in the Bandit faction war has been completed by the time I showed up. All that's left to do is kick down the main base door and seal the deal. The faction war screen in my PDA even shows that the bandits basically have neither the squads nor the resources to get anything done. But naturally, As soon as I begin attacking the base, my allies lose an outpost to some mutants and I have to waddle back there to win it back. By the time I solve the situation and get back to my mission, an emission begins, and it's time to once again sit at the base waiting for the zone to finish its temper tantrum. On the second attempt, a mission to clear out the approach to the base pops up, but so does another emission, which would be just annoying on its own, but get this, the closest hideout is the Bandit base. Yeah, the big one in the middle. So as the ground begins to shake and scream, I break into the train station and start blasting, I guess. Obviously the zero resources left to the Bandit faction really show themselves as I tank through any and all shooting and sit there waiting for the Stalker squad to arrive and start spamming me with messages.
This day will go down in the zone's history as the day of victory for stalkers over bandits. Thanks, dude. No more backhanders entertainment and shit you lost the garbage.
My reward, amongst a lot of DMs from Valerian, is a bubble artifact, which is basically the best anti-radiation artifact in the game, and also a Seva suit. Wow! Thanks, guys! I wish we didn't murder the only guy who knew how to upgrade it! Not that I'm expecting a better payout from defeating the only faction in the game that has no exoskeleton variant, but I'm still gonna brag about it. Because get this, in the vanilla game, this whole thing is basically undoable. Because the faction war mechanic is bugged beyond belief. Ignoring for a moment the absolute peak game design of having to wait for the AI to pathfind to you for hours on end, sometimes the final enemy base will just continue spawning enemies and never actually count as captured. You would show up, eradicate everyone present, and in a few minutes a new squad will just spawn in, and you have to do it all over again. It's even worse if you initiate the war between the duty and the freedom, because the squads of either group never ever reach the opposite end of the map. You will forever be doomed to sit at the final enemy camp shooting the forever respawning troops. So let's not get involved at all, because, let's face it, at the end of the game we're going to wipe both of those factions off of the face of the planet with the biggest emission the zone has ever seen. As soon as we pass through the Yantar factory and into the Red Forest, this is a cool moment because we can actually just about catch a glimpse of s.t.a.l.k.e.r running away from us, despite him having pretty much a 3-day long head start at this point. It would be incredibly funny if we could shoot him right here and right now, but unfortunately the plot demands that we chase him until we hit a loner ambush. s.t.a.l.k.e.r blows up the tunnel so we can't follow, and so we'll need to find a different way in. Or find someone to show the way in, because s.t.a.l.k.e.r couldn't stalk his way out of a wet paper bag. Lebedev is convinced that a man named Forrester can suss out the road to the power plant through the abandoned town of Limansk. The trouble is that no one knows the road to the Forrester himself either, as his hut is lost somewhere in the Red Forest. But it's the only chance we got, so let's go get eaten by trees or something. As you enter the highly anomalous woods, you're guaranteed to receive a plea for help from a group of stalkers exploring the area. Their goal is the anomaly cluster called the Devilish Encampment. And with that name, you gotta go visit. And I know I gotta visit since this is the one spot in the whole game where you're guaranteed to fight a pseudo-giant. Like, we need to see how the upgraded PM holds up against this massive piece of flesh. Of course, our duel is not entirely fair, given that I have the whole Stalker group to back me up, but I appreciate the opportunity to headshot something that barely seems to have a head. It does still work though. The giant falls far sooner as you'd expect. As with any other time in this game, when people say that a place is impossible to reach, it's all just a matter of finding a space bubble to leap into. This time, the teleporter is right at the top of this tank, lost in the middle of the woods. After the first visit though, Forrester unlocks the palisade in his backyard and you can come here normally with your legs. The Forrester is an old man who's been in charge of these woods since before the original Chornobyl explosion. He's happy to see the rare visitor, despite there clearly being a squad of duty guarding his tower right outside. No clue how they got in here, or how they survived for that matter. There's a freedom camp right on the other side of the location gate. In fact, it's their future base, the army warehouses, is the next place we have to visit. The one bridge to Limansk has been lifted by the bandits that found their way to the city. but Forrester is convinced. He's been picking up some radio chatter coming through the interference. If we can rise to a better vantage point, we can get a clearer signal and establish communication with whatever stalkers are on the other side of the river. But by this point in the story, the warehouses are still occupied by the army officials, and the only stalkers in the area are one squad of freedom and half a team of mercenaries, who are all too happy to meet me, granted where the other half went. Turns out the chatter Forrester has picked up are the mercenaries, lost in a space bubble anomaly, reaching out for help. The Forrester thinks he can lead them out of the tight spot. And this is where I get really excited, because the idea of going deep and exploring a broken space anomaly is actually very appealing to me. Solving the mysteries of the zone is where the Stalker games really shine, and yes, I am absolutely dicking with you, we don't get to actually go into the space anomaly at all. This is incredible disappointment, but the only participation the player gets in the freeing the mercenaries quest is to bring Forrester a unique artifact called Compass, which is basically just a task to wipe out a bandit camp. The lore behind Compass itself is quite fascinating. Forrester describes it as an artifact that will lead you out of any anomaly. And we don't get to learn how to use it because we just give it up and move on with our lives. We then need to capture a radio tower in the army warehouses, which is basically just a task to wipe out a military camp now. And these are some tricky things to accomplish for someone with only the basic pistol. But on the other hand, I have over 1,000 bullets. From there, the trapped mercs can receive the transmission from the Forrester, and he just explains to them how to exit the anomaly via a group chat. I guess the artifact just told him where to go. While we've been establishing contact, Lebedev shows up by the bridge to Limansk with seemingly every remaining Clear Sky gunner. The mercs can now lower the bridge to the city from the other side, but they need support fire as the area is being held by the bandits. Since the next bit is a lengthy shootout from across the river, and my bullets only just about reach the crooks from any of the cover. Which is bad enough, since I have to aim a few full centimeters above the target to account for the bullet curve. But that's when another mechanic kicks in. Every now and again, a sniper will show up on a hill overlooking the battle, and neither Lebedev nor the allies will shut up or do their job until the player takes that sniper out.
Kill that sniper!
They cannot deal with the sniper on their own, and the distance is so big I can't even see the target without a scope half the time. However, to my surprise, my bullets can still actually hit. Even with the iron sights, I can barely see the guy I'm aiming at, as long as the trajectory lines up. It's a 1 in a dozen chance, but that's about how many bullets I have in a clip anyway. I end up actually breaking out the binoculars to get the general positioning right, and then eyeball it with the pistol, hoping that a couple of shots out of the full clip will hit and move the plot along. The battle plays out at a snail's pace, but by the end, the bridge is down and the road to Limansk is open, and with it, we hit the point of no return. Essentially, this is the spot where you abandon the main story if you want to have the game in free play. But since at this point I would rather be free to play a different game, I decided to go and shotgun the final stretch. Pardon, I decided to go and Makarov the final stretch. I have a different game in the series I wanted to do with only the shotgun. At the entry to Limansk, we meet two bandits who beg for mercy in exchange for information about an ambush deeper into the city. This one is actually the easiest enemy pile in the city, as the area progresses from bandits to military and ultimately to monolith. With my weapon of choice, the only way through is to cut the distance to the house, filled with gunmen, and aim for the head while spamming the load the last save button. This close up, getting in the way of fire for anyone is an immediate game over, so I just have to be faster than the other guy and try to only engage one person at a time. On the upside, this is the part of the game where the enemies are less likely to use all of their grenades at once. Clear Sky is kinda notorious for multiple enemies grenading you all at once as soon as you plop down for camping, especially on this, the Master difficulty. Still, with all the tweaks that make the Clear Sky battle system unique, even the amount of enemies here feels fairly reasonable compared to the previous game. Really, exploring a small town like this, built in a lot of ways on negative space, feels really fun. The problem is, you're not actually exploring it at all. Limansk is an incredibly railroady trip, where intuitive and clear shortcuts are often cut off with clumsily placed wire fence walls. They really want you to go this exact way they planned, and it really gets in the way because that way leads through a machine gun nest at some point. Still, after Shadow of Chernobyl gave you a whole Pripyat to explore, with mysterious, exciting and completely optional locations to discover, Limansk game design feels like such a cop-out. It's very well represented in this one segment where you have to cross a road filled with space anomalies. Visually, it's the most interesting part of the level. I especially like how you can see parts of the debris cut clean off by the space bubbles. But your only way through this place is to get into the bus and sneak out through the window. There is no other way around or through, and trying to sneak in the clear openings between the bubbles just gets you teleported back. You'd expect there to be a different solution of sorts, or maybe a more intricate puzzle through the teleport bubbles, like the last time there was a mission to navigate teleport bubble. But no, you go the one route you're shown, and you will like it, damn it. The monolith base at the end feels versatile by comparison, but that is where I also hit a realization of something. On my way through the city, very few enemies were actually carrying the 19mm ammo I need for my pistol. Army and some of the monolith do carry 18mm bullets, but all of them are also using Fora, the other pistol with weakest stats in the game, so I can't use their pistols. Which is why, just in case I run out of ammunition, I decide to backtrack and see if I can find a second PM so I can farm up basic bullets if the worst happens. Sure, I won't be able to upgrade it on the go, but at least I won't get locked out of the ability to attack at all. It is only when I actually find one that I realize that I still have 400 of the armor piece invariant ammo, so the construction site ends up being much less of a challenge than I expected. After that, it's a quick blow up of the sniper to finish off Limansk, and we're off to the most scripted part of the game. I blab a lot about non-linearity, but this level is literally a straight line. This stretch is the abandoned hospital that serves here as a tunnel to the Chornobyl power plant, since the actual tunnel left to be the best part of Call of Pripyat. Despite that, I honestly don't actually mind it, perhaps because it occupies the same territory as the lab levels in the rest of the franchise. We're still only shooting some, guys. And the player choice is all but eliminated, since the allies will now straight up tell you what to do for the game to progress. What's that? The Clear Sky troops are pinned by a machine gunner? Can I not just kill him myself and be done with it? No! I have to go through the area when they tell me, and only when they tell me, and clear the way for the group, so they can make their way through and blow up the nest with a grenade, like the player could have done a long time ago. Still, the abandoned hospital atmosphere is interesting, and the shooting gallery gameplay is kinda fun. The headshots with armor piercing rounds make the monolith grunts go down at a reasonable rate, at least compared to the final level, and while it's still a little bit like a whole different game crushed into this one, it's at least a good game, And nowhere is it more evident as with the only true boss fight in the whole original series. You get a boss bar and everything, and what amazing wonder of the zone deserves such a special treatment? A helicopter. A military helicopter shows up to circle the area and shoot at the player in occasional bursts. I have completely forgotten that this is even in the game. It comes completely out of left field and is absolutely unprecedented in this entire game series. But seeing it now, asking, can you beat STALKER Clear Sky with only a PM pistol? Feels ridiculous. This is a helicopter. Look how high up it is. And I have a Makarov pistol. What do you think is gonna happen? Fools. This is my sniper Makarov. And this is how much damage one shot from it does to a military chopper! Holy shit, they weren't lying, that ammo do be armor piercing. And get this, I distinctly remember that no matter what you do, this boss fight ends with the helicopter leaving for the base at the end of the battle. But in this particular case, and for some reason, the machine gracefully crashes into the hospital, blowing up the passage further and to the Chornobyl nuclear power plant. Surely it's not too late to stop that guy who left before us, traveled light and probably took a more direct path. The Clear Sky troops are engaged in a battle against the Monolith forces, but Lebedev has a special mission for us. Equipped with a special electromagnetic rifle, we have to scale the power plant and shoot down s.t.a.l.k.e.r.'s protective helmet to expose him to psi emissions surrounding the power plant and functionally kill him. Obviously, me and my PM have a more direct approach. And despite the game automatically equipping you with a MP rifle, you can easily unequip it and swap it to whatever weapon you'd like. Of course, the rifle also has a scope attached, and no trajectory decay, but we've come to know our pistol quite well by now, and surely it can reach the target if we just aim it bad enough. While this encounter can be beaten without leaving the original platform that the game spawns you in, the game does provide a portal for you to jump into in case the stalker leaves your line of sight. Your punishment for having to do so is that before you return to a nice sniping spot, you'll have to battle a platform worth of Monolith troops. And at this point their armor is borderline impregnable, which is why a more powerful assault rifle is teleported into your hands whenever you pass into a portal. Of course, we are ignoring the extra weaponry in favor of our pistol, even if it makes the same roof last for half an hour. At first I was hoping to catch up to s.t.a.l.k.e.r. by running the power lines, but that doesn't seem to actually happen, though my wiggling successfully accomplishes one thing and one thing only. It glitches s.t.a.l.k.e.r. the hell out. Apparently, there already is a bug in the game where reloading a save forces him to descend down a ladder or ascend on a ladder or something or other. I don't think they actually coded this part of the game, as much as just willed it into existence by sheer force of mind, so it barely ever works. One of the most common glitches associated with this level is s.t.a.l.k.e.r. straight up falling off of the electrostation, but also becoming invincible. But in my specific case, what happens is he kind of climbs all the way down off of the wall, and then climbs all the way up on the wall, and one way or another he just starts running through the air, believe it or not. At first I even am able to catch up to him, and I start blasting like I never blasted before, but none of my bullets deplete his massive health bar in the upper right corner, nor seem to have any other effect whatsoever. This continues until s.t.a.l.k.e.r. gets just stuck entirely. I assume because he actually reached like a corner of the skybox. This allows me to at least get a good look at him, and yeah, sure enough, he once again looks nothing like in any of the cutscenes from the last games. Good job everybody, we did it! My next assumption of course was that the reason I can't actually hurt him because he was running on some invisible platform between me and him. So for a moment I decide to fail the run, grab the electromagnetic rifle and try and shoot him down, which still works. So I guess he can just canonically levitate. But since he's now stuck in this one corner, it gives me an opportunity to actually test everything out and sadly confirm that he does indeed not take any damage from any weapon except for the electromagnetic gun. This of course makes perfect sense. We can't just go ahead and shoot him dead with bullets, since he is alive and well in the original game that this is a prequel to. But it also makes absolutely no sense, because Lebedev's entire plan is to use the gun to disable a prototype helmet, which is protecting him from the psi emissions, which will still kill him. So why wouldn't Lebedev just give me a sniper rifle to begin with? Clear Sky operatives had no problem killing indiscriminately up until this moment in the plot. But when it comes to s.t.a.l.k.e.r., unfortunately, I can only use this make pretend gun. Like it's a mild reskin of a Gauss rifle. Can we stop pretending that it's not a Gauss rifle here? Literally the only reason this battle takes this exact shape is because the writers wrote themselves into a corner, but one way or another, this means that no, you can in fact not beat STALKER Clear Sky with only the PM pistol. By this flippin' much. We used the stupid gun for suppression fire on zombies. We've done a sniper duel with it. We flippin' shot and killed a helicopter with a handgun. But this apparently, the very finale, is where STALKER Clear Sky draws the line. And wow, did we get much further than I expected. Just to prove that the game is not entirely glitched, I finished off s.t.a.l.k.e.r with the EMP gun, which triggers an even bigger emission than Lebedev ever predicted. It's almost as if while trying to prevent one guy from reaching the center of the zone, he personally led several dozen more guys exactly to the center of the zone. Funny how that happens, huh? Also, at this point the zone is still controlled by the sea consciousness, so we know for sure that all of the clear sky theories are not actually applicable at all. This game can be very frustrating like that for anyone still remembering the lore from Shadow of Chernobyl. Though for a prequel, it retcons miraculously little, even if a lot of the actions of the characters seem rather silly or counterintuitive, while a lot of plot points tease incredible things that aren't actually delivered in the game proper. Sure, it can feel like it could use some rewrites, both plot and programming wise, but you will notice that time and money are in general in short supply for these developers. But at the end of the day, it's still more Stalker, which I'm always down for. And if there's anything that this video proves, is that the revised artifact and weapon upgrade systems are actually very fun and pretty powerful, if they can carry me with my absolute trash gun almost to the end of the game. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in Call of Pripyat or Heart of Chernobyl, depending on if I'm gonna go buy myself a new GPU, cause damn shaders do be compiling, I tell you.